Hi, everybody. My name is Kateconnolly. I am talking to you today about the concept of surrender versus control and how we can tell the difference and what that means. I run an intuitive mastery school where we deal with all things intuition and spirituality, where we work through healing and learn how to master ourselves in a way that accelerates our lives in lots of beautiful ways. Each week, I have a class as well as a live channeled meditation specifically to accelerate your healing and your growth. I've also got a book called The Intuitive Heart Revolution, which takes you step by step through the process of awakening, becoming conscious, dealing with emotions, healing drama and belief systems, and then moving into manifesting an amazing life. So if you want to check that out, you can click on my link below as well. So, I wanted to talk to you briefly about this concept of surrender versus control. And I've got a very specific example because it happened to me this week, or more appropriately, it happened to my daughter. So, my number two daughter, most divine, beautiful, angelic child ever. I adore this child. She's just a ray of sunshine in the world. And she went on school camp this week. And she gets along with everybody in her class except one girl who picks on her fairly often. She gets bullied, and it's not often and it's not bad, but it's enough for her to feel very, very uncomfortable. And it's enough for her to kind of keep quite a distance between her and this girl. So, interestingly enough, they get paired up into tents because they're going on this camp, and she ends up with this girl. And my daughter is not the kind of person to go and complain about things, but she did go to the teacher and she did say, look, I'm really worried. I'm really concerned. This girl bullies me and I don't really want to be in the tent with her. And the teacher, who is an incredible teacher, by the way, bless her, she was actually really unwell and she just didn't really have the capacity to deal with it at the time. So she just said, well, look, maybe you'll rub off on her and maybe, it'll be a good experience. So I kind of only heard about this afterwards, and I didn't really have any possibility of changing it. But I do know that the teacher, who is an incredible teacher, did attempt to rectify this through a proxy. So she did actually get the principal involved and another parent, and they were just trying to organize these tents appropriately. So they ended up moving the tents around, and my daughter was put in a different tent. But the shuffling happened probably two or three times. So it got to the point where it was just confusing about who was staying with who and how it was all going to play out. So, interestingly enough, I find out a couple of days later that she did end up spending the night in the tent with the bully, right? It was her and one other child. And no matter how much we tried to kind of massage the situation so that my daughter felt comfortable, she still ended up in the tent with a girl that she most dreaded. And when I think about this, I think, could I have done more? Is this something that I could have actually participated in? And the answer was no, because it all kind of happened at camp and I didn't have any possibility of knowing what was going on, number one. But number two, she was really supposed to spend the night with this girl. There was an unfolding of energies for my daughter. And interestingly enough, she ended up with a horrendous batch of chicken pox, and I needed to go and pick her up the next morning anyway, right? So she didn't even spend the whole camp. She was there for one day. And energetically, she had this massive release. I don't think I've ever seen chickenpox as bad as I did on my beautiful child. And she was in so much pain and so much agony that it had to be more than a physical release. And there was some karma and some energy unfolding between her and this girl that we needed to fully trust. Now, this girl is not a bad child any stretch of the imagination. It was just a pairing that didn't really work well. And again, there's probably a story behind that. There's probably a history between the two of them outside of this lifetime or outside of their conscious awareness that's created this friction between them. So it's nobody's fault and nobody's done anything wrong. It's just a really interesting story. But I do find it really fascinating that even though my daughter went out of her way to speak up, which she normally doesn't do, about something that she really felt very uncomfortable about, she ended up stuck there anyway. Have you ever had that happen to you where you've tried so desperately to get out of a situation and just ended up there anyway? It usually means then that you have some kind of karma unfolding or some kind of learning unfolding or something that's happening to you that's going to help you develop mentally. So I do actually believe that my daughter had a massive growth experience that she needed to go through, and it was really painful for her, and she really struggled through it. But I think this beautiful girl that's going to emerge out the other side is going to be a much better and much more balanced person than the girl that was there before the chickenpox. So please remember that this concept of control versus surrender is a really tricky one. Do we surrender when we know things are not right for us? Like, absolutely not. I think it's really important to state boundaries and really important to state needs. I really am a full advocate for that. But if the universe somehow conspires us to keep us in that situation anyway, then there usually is something that we need to learn from that. And again, it's not because you've done anything wrong and it's not because you're being punished or anything like that. It's never, ever the case. This human experience is always an experience of learning, an experience of ascending and going into a better place. So if we allow those situations to unfold as they need to, obviously keeping in mind our boundaries and our values and our needs, then sometimes these really fascinating and very powerful stories can emerge where we actually become much better and much more infinitely loving versions of ourselves. I hope that was really helpful. Have a fantastic week.